Jefferson County Board of Education, June 13th, 7 o'clock, 2022. If you would please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Next, we have a report from the Deputy Superintendent for Instructional Support. And we will have to speak loudly. Dave, I think you're up. Sorry.
Good evening. I've included on your table a packet of information for my instructional update. First, I wanted to let you know that all of our schools have completed a climate survey. It's a survey that students, staff, and also parents are surveyed. In meeting with each of the principals, we are encouraging them to use it as a tool for their leadership team to review and make adjustments to things at their school as they see. It's a valuable tool for every principal, and we'll certainly value that data and encourage principals to use it. Can you hear me? Okay.
Can we turn that up at all? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Gotcha.
Want to bring the microphone and go up on stage so he can talk closer?
Yeah, you want to, Dave?
Yeah, hey, Dave, just pick that microphone up there. There you go.
Can you hear me a little better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That might work back here just as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Since you probably did not hear the first thing I said, the climate survey data is in for all the schools. That's a survey that our students, our staff, and our parents take, and we encourage our principals to use it as a valuable tool for them to understand those perspectives at their school, share it with their leadership team, and make adjustments and adapt to the data and take it very seriously. Sometimes when you look at climate survey data, you may get caught up in the number of people who have responded, and certainly that's a factor, but we want each of the schools to take that and learn from it and make adjustments in their building. I have attached to your packet a list of the summer professional development opportunities that our department kind of put together a list for your reference. I've had a couple recently, including today. Michelle Cantley did a workshop on curriculum mapping with high school teachers. And last week we had a presentation on math, a good math workshop for elementary teachers. So you can see what we are planning to offer this summer. One that is not on there, we are currently working on our own version of classroom management / relationships connections. And we are going to offer that in July for any teachers that are currently in our system. We also plan to offer that as part of our new teacher orientation, as I'm sure all of you know how important classroom management is for new folks. So that's a list for your reference. One of those particular offerings this summer is on about 3 pages back. a literacy instruction for diverse learners. There's a workshop for Berkeley and Jefferson County employees. And it's a 2-day workshop that's being offered and hosted by Jefferson County. It's an online workshop, and it will include a classroom set of materials that meets the training criteria, literacy instruction for diverse learners. Day one, educators will be introduced to theoretical framework of a cohesive, inclusive curriculum design, and also participate in an intensive review of their literature selections. Among other things, day two, will be inclusive student-centered instructional practices, and educators will focus on understanding the importance of working with diverse learners and developing instructional methods in order to best serve those students, and also be introduced to best practice inclusive instructional strategies. So looking forward to that. And again, that's being offered for both Berkeley and Jefferson, and we are hosting it here in Jefferson County. The last couple pages in your packet, we just started the summer experience today, so these numbers certainly can change, but I wanted to let you know where we are. We have about 1,060 students participating, which is a 15% increase from last year's student participation. We have 453 of those students are bus riders, which I think I heard today that equates to about 21 bus runs altogether. You can see each site. There's the enrollment by site there. You can see that JHS is leading, but that has middle school and high school students included. In terms of the elementary schools, North Jefferson and Page Jackson have the highest enrollment. In terms of grade levels, kindergarten and second grade had the highest number of student enrollments across the county. And then finally, a little bit of background on the high school and middle school program. Edgenuity was an option this year for secondary students wishing to complete their credit recovery. Middle schoolers is in person, while majority of the high school students chose the virtual option. As you probably know, same as last year, breakfast, lunch, and transportation offered to all students. A nurse is at each location, and Alpha Best is providing wraparound childcare for over 100 students at each of the 4 elementary locations. So again, today was our first day for the summer experience, and so far, so good. Very, very good. Very pleased with the enrollment at 1,060 students. So that's all I have for you for my update tonight. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
What's the difference between Apex and Edgenuity?
Okay, Apex has traditionally been used for credit recovery, and Edgenuity is a new product that we have just started using for initial credit, but we're also looking at ways to use Edgenuity for credit recovery as well. They're two different
Right.
companies.
I'm familiar with Apex, but is it a similar product, just a different?
It's similar. There's a lot of advantages we think to Edgenuity, including videos that seem to support the curriculum a little bit better. And also we think that the remediation part of Edgenuity is superior to Apex. Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I just had a quick question. First, just saying I'm thrilled that kindergarten and second grade have the highest number of enrollments, because I think that's going to be extremely important, especially in with COVID and the kids coming out of COVID. So that's exciting to see. But just following up with Donna's question, my whole question with all of the pieces of this would be the data piece. So if I'm looking at the Edgenuity and the Apex, I'm hopeful that we are tracking every single one of those students, who's in which one. And by the end of the summer, we'll be able to tell how many courses were passed in one, how many courses were passed in another, and then be able to look at English versus English, math versus math, and kind of make sure that we have data to support yes or no, that is a better program, or it isn't. So we know going forward what we're gonna do with it. So that would be my request with that, and also with even just any of the stuff we're doing, if we can make sure that, we're doing that, like how many of our classroom aides and ECATs are taking Orton Gillingham. So overall, we have how many trained, and with the other curriculum stuff that we're offering, how many teachers do we have taking it? And do we see increases in that as far as walkthroughs? Then we can relate those to, we know this teacher took that training. And if they didn't take it, why? Because we need to know if the summer months they're not coming in. So we're going to have to figure out something else or work with the state to be able to offer something at other times. But I think if we don't have any, if we're not following it detailed data wise, we're just not going to know.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We do have a good program that keeps track of our professional development that Tanya Dallas Lewis is always reminding us to make sure that we put in our sessions, and also have the folks that are part of that register as well. So we do
Well,
have
I
good
think, if
data.
I'm not mistaken, when we did the central office reorg, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Gibson, we do have somebody that was going to be responsible for somewhat of data. So in my personal opinion, I would be taking that huge list and saying, hey, here are all the people that signed up to take this. This is your job to put it in.
Right.
And then follow up and make sure that person did that job. So that way it takes the pressure off, because I know you guys are busy and have 500,000 other things to do. So yeah, but somebody making sure that that data is tracked so they can report back on it.
Certainly will.
That would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is great.
Next on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting of May 23rd, 2022, and the special board meeting held June 1st, 2022. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Is there discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question about the June 1st minutes. Wouldn't we include, in addition to the superintendent's salary increase, that there are 34 sick days that can be reimbursed, and then the levy checks? Do we not include that in the minutes? No? Oh, okay.
We don't think we have in the
Oh,
past.
okay. I just thought it would be helpful to the public.
Are there any other questions about the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Citizens' comments? There are none. Okay, we move forward to the consent agenda. Are there any changes or deletions to the consent agenda?
Good evening. On the personnel actions, we do have one correction or change, that is line 36. The change is a special education teacher from the secondary high middle school to an autism teacher. And then there is a correction on line 72. The effective date of the transfer for Miss Horning is actually going to be July 1st, not August 1st.
Is there any other corrections or deletions?
That is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Dr. Joy. Is there discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. 85, line 85. I'm assuming this is for a cheerleader coach because I recognize the name, but what is that coaching position?
Yeah, that's correct. It was cut off. I see the row shrunk when the formatting was changed from Excel to PDF.
Oh, yeah. And then 78 and 79, it looks like request to move the position of technology resource facilitator. So you don't need that position anymore?
Correct. Yep, that position is going to be modified from the technology resource facilitator to the academic coach, because that's where from a district-wide need is more for the academic support, coaching support, as opposed to the technology resource.
So it's 2 more coaches and not a classroom teacher?
First of all, we want to make sure that all of our schools have adequate academic coaches. They're a very valuable part of what we do every day. Currently, our 2 largest schools share coaches, and we wanted to ensure that our 2 high schools had their own full-time academic coach, not only because of the number of staff, but because of the number of new staff. So that was a priority. And then shifting everything around, also ensuring that our high schools have a coach that has a math background and one that has an ELA background, that our middle schools have a coach has a math background and an ELA background, were our priorities. So in order to do that, we reduced actually an administrative piece of one of the positions, which is a facilitator, to create an additional coach and have just one facilitator as opposed to 2 part-time facilitators.
But you don't need to specify that in the job? You don't say math or?
No, they're all listed as academic coaches, and then they can specialize.
So you're assuming that this technology person is also a math person? Is that what it is?
No, there's no technology person.
The current technology resource
Is
facilitator?
vacant.
Oh, okay. I have a question about the budget as well, or whatever that's called. So I'm noticing there are several items under Epic, thousands and thousands of dollars, all with the same check number. So it's like 9 different checks, but they all have the same check number. So I don't understand that. And that's the first question.
Well, Ms. Russell isn't here, so if you could, Ms. Russell, who is our Chief Financial Officer, isn't here. So if you could mark the numbers that you're speaking of or give them to me orally, then I
Yeah.
can give those to her and she can.
Yeah, I can tell you
Provide
it's
that.
check number 142373. It's listed 9 different times.
Okay.
And I guess, I mean, I keep asking what are all these Epic expenses? So maybe you can ask her to clarify, because there's about 20. But there's just the 9 that have the same check number.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the consent agenda?
Just real quick, I'm thinking because of number 70 in that position, it looks like we actually grew the population at the Lolly House for the need of that. Does anybody know that? Or can you ask Mr. Wink to just verify that?
Yes, the information I received from Mr. Wink was that they had addressed a little bit more of a different model of how students would be going in and rotating through the Lolly House to have an increase, but at different times. And so that model would then support having the 2 professionals remain at the Lolly House.
I know they had discussed a lot of those different things. So that's nice to see.
Yeah,
I
he was
think.
comfortable with that model
Yeah,
and felt that
that's
that would address everybody's concerns and to continue to offer the support with the staff there without making any changes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep, great question. Thank you.
I guess I have one more question. What does ARP funding mean?
ARP funding is the last round of federal funding for CARES Act that we received, ma'am.
It's just really hard to keep approving positions when, we're losing teachers, so trying to justify it.
Well,
Is that something then that you wouldn't have been able to fund a teacher then with that money? So it's
With which money are you
ARP
speaking?
money.
Well, we fund many teachers through our ARP funds. We also fund all of the support structures for teachers as well. The fact that we have a significant number of long-term subs and individuals who are new to teaching, we lose them if we don't mentor them and support them, provide them with academic coaching, and provide materials, instructional materials and training for them. So yes, ma'am, that is part of the structure as well. We sat down, and as we noted in the previous budget, all of these we've met individually, principal by principal. This budget was also provided to all of the faculty senate chairs in advance. It was provided to the service senate. So I can appreciate, and I always appreciate, we're all champions for teachers here. And we all are very committed to the teachers and the service personnel who are serving children. There are a number of jobs in this district that go into supporting those teachers and service staff being successful. And some of those positions are in ARP funding, as well as many teaching and service positions as well.
When the rest of the board approved the budget at the last meeting, were these listed, or are these in addition to anything that was in that budget?
When you say these, I'm not sure what you're referring
These
to.
two positions for coaches.
No, well, the technology resource facilitator has been part of the budget, but that position's being repurposed and reconfigured. So that's a change, which is noted. Then the academic coaching position, the 79, the creation of it, that was in response to seeing the gaps in supports that are at the school that align with what Dr. Gibson Learn was mentioning, that instructional support team that is to cover gaps into what we can currently support schools, and came from feedback from schools as support that they requested and needed.
At what point will these interventionist positions? I thought that the board asked for a correction last time in the budget to add interventionists or something to be changed.
You had asked for special education to meet with the elementary principals because you had removed the 3 service positions for that. And you had asked them to meet with the principals to revise and bring you back a different model with either professional specialists, a model that looked like the middle and high school or something different. So Mr. Banks can give an update on where we're at with that.
So these aren't anything to do with that.
No, and I think with the intervention request to the budget process, what we presented to you at that time was what the principals have requested for their schools. And at that time, we did not have any requests to move forward with requesting from you interventionist positions.
So Mr. Wink and I met with the elementary principals last week in response to your question. And we asked them what they wanted. And we narrowed it down to, in replacing the 3 service positions, that it would be 2 professional positions. The details that haven't been worked out are specifically what those 2 professionals will do and where they'll be located. He's still working through that, but we did have probably an hour-and-a-half conversation with all of our elementary principals last week. So he will be bringing that information to you at the next meeting.
But we asked for that and for interventionists as well. And I would like for you all to think about, rather than doing interventionist positions, increasing the money that those schools are getting, because it is much better for them to use retirees that they can get to come in a half a day, and they can use their expertise if it's in math or in English. And it appears to me that the money is better spent by increasing their budget for interventions opposed to creating positions.
Okay, thank you.
There was 2 separate issues. One was that issue, of working with that, but also with the interventionists. It was also mentioned that due to the staffing shortages, a lot of these interventionists are being pulled into teaching. And so we really, again, goes back to data. We need to know how much intervention is actually happening. So is it a lack of the fact that we need an interventionist, or we do need it? Is it just lack of time spent on intervention? So if we can't track what's actually happening, we don't know how much intervention is actually being given and how much more we need.
I think our money's better spent on hiring back retirees that have expertise in certain areas, and that we can make our bucks go further by doing it that way, opposed to hiring positions.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Okay, Donna was a no, Janet. Okay, moving on, unfinished business, action on approval of the science book adoption. Come on, let's smile a little bit. It's not that bad.
I think some of them might have gotten caught in the rain.
Okay.
I'd like to thank these folks for being here again tonight. We're here to ask for your approval for our science adoption materials. And before I introduce each of the folks, I'd also like to remind you that we are asking you to adopt the materials tonight. We are not asking you to purchase as part of the upcoming year's budget. We plan to purchase for the following year. We have as Dr. Gibson Learn has expressed, we have a very large ELA adoption this year, and we are planning on using all available funds for that. So the state requires that you adopt. It does not require that you purchase. So this year we are asking you to adopt the science materials that these groups have worked so hard at reviewing and making decisions on. But we are not asking you to approve the funding for that. That is a FY24 expenditure. So I'll just let everyone introduce themselves that's here. We'll start on the end with Joel.
I'm Patrick Helmick. I previously was at Wildwood Middle School, now I'm in Jefferson High School. Science.
Anna BFNL, and I am instructional coach at Jefferson Middle School. Jessica Rustler, Washington High School. Jamie Ritzenballer, assistant principal at Washington. Terry Lynn, pre-K tutor.
All right, so again, we appreciate you guys coming out tonight, especially after the school year's been over. You probably thought summer started, but we need you one more time. So we had one comment after the materials had been out for public. After the materials had been out for public review. And that comment was, quote, "Thank you for picking a hands-on curriculum." So to remind you of what our choices were, again, for elementary school, the adoption materials they chose were from McGraw-Hill at a cost of $640,000. That does include 2 years of the materials that go along with the hands-on learning. So the kits that accompany science. For middle school, the selection was Twig Science at a cost of $400,000. We found that it was a value with the middle school adoption to include the materials as part of the entire adoption. it was not a value to do that for the elementary. So what we plan to do is after year 2 of our adoption with McGraw-Hill, we will make sure that those hands-on materials are included in our district's budget to provide those to the schools. And then high school, if you remember, when we put up the PowerPoint from last time, we have various vendors because we have so many different subject areas at the high school. Ms. Cantley and her team approved many different vendors for high school adoption. So altogether, 640 for elementary, 400,000 for middle school, and 400 for high school, comes out to $1.4 million for the entire adoption. So one thing that we will not have to be concerned with that we were concerned with before was how we were going to offer training on a new ELA adoption and a science adoption, particularly for elementary teachers. So because we're delaying the purchase, we can focus our training, especially with our academic coaches, on ELA adoption for the coming year. I think that's all the comments that I have, and we'd be glad to open it up for any questions. Does anyone have any comments before we open it up for questions? Okay. Questions from
Can
the
I get a
board?
motion on the floor first? Is there a motion to approve the science book adoption? Thank you, Dr. Joy. Is there a second? Okay, discussion. Thank you. Any questions? Justin?
Yeah, make sure I'm clear. We're adopting ELA this 2022, 2023.
Yes, sir.
So this would be for 23, 2024.
We're adopting it effectively now, but not purchasing it until that
So
year.
adopting, does that mean curriculum mapping ahead of time before we actually buy it, or just, for those who don't know what we mean by adopting?
Yes, adopting just means that the board is deciding what materials the district will use for science.
Got you. And does the team get access to that when we adopt that we're buying? Can they work ahead of time to prepare for?
We are working through that right now because one of the issues that comes up as we had with ELA is, do we continue to purchase old materials for this coming year or move into the new materials? And we just had that discussion. And one of the issues obviously is if you purchase the new materials, we're not providing the training yet. So we're working through that, probably differentiating that among our levels, but that's a concern.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
I don't.
Opposed, no. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. We would like to thank that committee for all their hard work.
Yes,
Thank
thank you,
Yes.
guys.
Thank you all.
Next on our agenda is a request for approval for an RFP to replace the Board of Education front sidewalk and add ramps at each side door. And this is part of the bond project.
Yes, sir. It is part of the bond project, and part of that bond project includes safety and security improvements at the Board of Education office. And these two projects will be at the forefront of starting the safety and security project. So tonight I come before you to ask that you approve the project so we can go out for an RFP so we can get the sidewalk fixed. The ramps will go on the parking lot side so that people will have easy access, particularly the physically disabled, more than just the front entrance into the building, that if they were in the rear of the building and there'd be an emergency, they'd be able to get out of the building as well.
Is there a motion for approval of an RFP to replace the front sidewalk and add ramps at the two side doors of the Board of Education?
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Joy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Joyce. Superintendent's comments. We have an executive session, and there will be action at the end of that. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Is there discussion available?
Okay, discussion. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to remind the board that when we go into executive session, that we're to discuss what we have told the public we're going in for. It's not a time to discredit a current past employee or board member.
This
Because it is a
personnel
violation.
action that we're going in
Yeah,
for.
I believe those are violations of the sunshine laws when we discuss other topics. So I just want to make that clear.
Yes, we're going in for personnel action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.